Hi, I'm Andrea Ivory, your host of Living for Longevity, a podcast designed to help you live your best life, presented by the Women's Breast and Heart Initiative, a nonprofit organization that transforms and saves lives through disease prevention and early detection. Today, I am excited to introduce our esteemed guest, Dr. Jean Johnson, a board-certified physician, breast cancer survivor, and founder of Rejuvenation for Her, a holistic wellness and intimacy center located right here in South Florida. Jean, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for the invitation to be a bit part of this session.
We're excited to talk about this topic. It's going to be great.
Yes.
Well, the British Medical Journal linked intimacy to longevity. And science has revealed that those who engage in regular physical intimacy tend to have lower levels of stress and have more enhanced emotional value. So today we are excited because we are going to unpack women's intimacy, a topic not generally pursued, if you will, in private conversations, let alone public conversations. Yes. So Jean, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
I'm
ready.
Get to it.
Okay.
Let's get to it.
Very good. Yes.
First, please tell us more about yourself.
Well, I'm a native Floridian, which is very rare.
Yes, it is.
Born and raised right here in Homestead, Florida. My primary and secondary school years were spent right here in South Florida. My high school was Jackson High School.
Wow.
All in the inner city. I spent my postgraduate high school years in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's where I attended a historical black college and university called Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. I returned back home to continue my education at the University of Miami Medical School and Jackson Memorial Hospital, where I've seen and done quite a few things. So my studies were in the field of medicine with a specialty, but more recently, my specialty has been, what would I say, my space is a little bit different now. I still love medicine and practice medicine, but it's just in a different space.
Wow. Well, it's really rare that you meet someone who was born here, who actually had their education, their formal education here. So it's exciting to meet. It's really exciting every time I speak with someone who was born here. And that's a whole nother show. So, yes. So why did you become a physician?
Well, I've always been interested in the sciences. I have a love for math and science, and I excelled in math and science. So I chose for being a physician because I actually get to be involved with math and science as well as involved with patients. I see patients come into the office. The clinical part of it was really interesting to me. And I love differential diagnosis. So I love being able to hear a patient's story and try to figure out what they need and how I can help them. So it never gets boring when you do that because everybody presents a different way. Yeah. So, and then I can do anything with that. As far as being a physician, I can use that skill with anything that I do. So I use it every day right now, just as I did when I first started in a specialty.
Yeah. So how has your breast cancer journey transformed your professional life?
I would say that it transformed my personal life first, and then the treatment of the breast cancer is what redirected my professional life. I'm still practicing as a physician, but in a different space, like I spoke of. Yes, exactly. And when I say space, I mean right now I mostly take care of women When I first started as a physician, I would take care of all patients. Now I focus on the intimacy and sexual health of women and their overall health and well-being after diagnosis of cancer or just in general. Mind and body goes together, and that's basically how I work with my practice right now.
Well, physical intimacy fosters deep relationships and overall it enhances our lives. Yet, with all of its benefits, some women struggle. Unfortunately, they struggle with the desire component as well as the engagement of physical intimacy. And it's our goal today. We hope
Yes.
that this episode helps women better understand what they're going through, why they're going through it,
Yes.
what they may go through,
Yes.
and then give them hope because change is possible.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Jean,
Mm-hmm.
please, for women, we're just going to start with the basics.
Okay.
What is the general age that the desire for physical intimacy begins? And then what is the age that it declines?
I would say it varies as far as the age that it begins. We know that our hormones change once we do start our cycle as a female. So the hormones do produce that feeling of wanting to have a certain desire. Of course, if there is more exposure, it may start earlier than what maybe it's supposed to start. So also our diets too can change the onset of menses, and therefore those hormone levels may be higher and may want us to, encourage more physical intimacy, even though maybe maturationally we may not be ready for it. But because of the hormones, our bodies may think that we're ready for it. And then I would say ending would be once we go through menopause. So it really is the beginning and end of the cycle. Things change. You feel more in the beginning, of course, and throughout your life with different changes like childbirth. Other things affect your life and how your mind is, how much time you have to even think about intimacy, all those things, stress, that can affect that. But once we go through the physical change, which is menopause, then our bodies change then, and our desire decrease because our hormone levels change. Our hormone levels affect our bodies. And just like everything else ages, the skin ages, the body parts age.
No, it doesn't. Look at you.
The body parts age, our organs age. Well, our feminine organs go through an aging process also. And we know that because we can look at ourselves and tell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a normal thing, but there are changes that occur that we feel that maybe we can't do anything about it, but
We'll talk about that.
we'll talk about that in a little bit. Exactly.
Yes, we will.
Exactly.
We will. But then, Dr. Jean, what are some other medical conditions that impede a woman from wanting to be physically engaged? Well, intimately engaged.
Well, any kind of illness, of course, because with illness, your mind becomes preoccupied, and your mind and body work together. Diabetes, that's one thing, because they changes also the pH of certain areas of your body. That can make you maybe less interested. Your physical appearance, just if you're overweight, like obesity, you may not have the desire to even become intimate because of feelings of self-worth. These things can also affect intimacy. Of course, any kind of cancer, the GYN cancers, breast cancer, vaginal, you have vaginal cancers, you have uterine cancers, all of the GYN areas, of course, they're going to affect your overall intimacy. But just any disease process that involves cancer, you're preoccupied with it. It's all consuming. And when you consume, you really don't have a desire to want to be intimate. So, that's something that we all need to work on and concentrate on when we have our partners or our spouses, that's a rough time and for relationships. You can have separation physically, but also because of that, have separation intimately, right? Yes.
How does blood flow affect libido, the desire?
Okay, so I would say blood flow. When you don't have blood flow to the area becomes atrophied. The blood flow has oxygen and red blood cells, so it feeds the area. When you don't have blood flow there, then it's not giving the oxygen the need for exciting in those intimate hormones and catecholamines, and they just don't work like usual. So blood flow is a major part of intimacy. It's in both men and women. But in women, the most common problem is that in the vaginal area, if you don't have good blood flow, then the area becomes dry and it becomes atrophied. And atrophied by the tissues change because they don't have the oxygen that they need, and therefore, and the blood flow, all of the nutrients and leukotrienes, all these different things are in the blood that restore the area to keep the area so that it can function in a normal way. So
we talked a little bit about hormones and, how they literally control us. Can you speak a little bit more directly about the hormones and how it affects the desire and the engagement of physical intimacy?
Well, hormones is a broad topic. Okay. We have testosterone. That's the hormone that gives us our desire to want to be intimate. Men have more testosterone than we do.
Yes.
Our testosterone levels stay pretty much the same throughout, but it's our estrogen levels that change over time. So during our younger years, the estrogen levels are a certain amount. It has a certain, quantity. And then as we age, our estrogen levels decrease because our organs don't function the same. The organs that produce estrogen for women are our ovaries and our adrenal glands. But our ovaries over time stop working because then we don't have that production of the ovaries are there to produce children. Well, it ages and it no longer produces the egg. That's when we go through the menopause. Then those estrogen levels decrease over time in our ovaries, and then we're only left with the adrenal gland. So the adrenal gland, the estrogen that feeds our vaginal area, it just decreases. That estrogen helps us to lubricate. It gives us also desire. And then we actually don't desire to have, our libido decreases. And then when you stop having intercourse, it atrophies. So that term, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's definitely true. So that can lead to other things like painful intercourse once that area atrophies and the vaginal wall becomes so thin. So that's a big difference with estrogen. It keeps the vaginal wall thick and moist. When you lose that, it becomes thin. So that's why intercourse becomes painful. And some people have, discomfort during intercourse, as well as you can have, like, sometimes you'll have spotting, things like that happen during intercourse because the tissues become so thin without the estrogen. So they have hormone replacement, which some
HRT.
Yes, HRT, and it helps in multiple ways.
But it also causes harm.
Right.
Or
so
it can.
It can cause harm, right. Now, HRT is good. Sometimes some women need it because that drastic change from estrogen and then no estrogen at all, it doesn't just affect the intimate part, but it affects your mental health and your
mood swings.
Exactly.
Anger.
It affects all of that. So HRT, I'm not totally against it. Some people just can't function when they make that change. So I don't think it's a bad idea. If you can't function, then you got to get back to functioning first before you can think about anything else. But what HRT does, it gives you a way to do it slowly.
Gradually.
Yes. So you can maybe get it in the beginning and then slowly wean off of it. It gives your body that time to adjust to the change. So you're not like one day you have hormones and then the next day you don't.
Right.
So that's what happens, unfortunately, with our breast cancer patients when we get chemo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why our symptoms are much worse than someone who gradually goes through menopause. So someone who gradually goes through menopause, the ovaries produce smaller and smaller amount, but you can kind of adjust to it. Some adjust better than others. But we go from 1 week to the next, menopause. So the vaginal area is 10 times as drier.
Kind of goes into shock.
Exactly. So it's really difficult, and we lose our breasts. And that is a big part of our intimacy too. So we have multiple things going on when it comes to intimacy and breast cancer, and also any kind of GYN cancer,
like
uterine
hysterectomy. Hysterectomy, you go from, one day you have all of this estrogen and hormones, and then the next day everything is gone.
Right. So that for those patients who have to have both their ovaries, a total abdominal hysterectomy, and their uterus removed, like for our patients who have the BRCA, that is like a double. Okay, you're getting rid of that. The only thing you have left to help you with estrogen is your adrenal gland, because your ovaries are gone. Now, some people just remove the uterus and they still have their ovaries. So at least they have their ovaries that are slowly producing. But if you go
a complete hysterectomy,
to me, it's right. So it's a little bit complicated, but if you have, it's good to have someone or a spouse, be a spouse or partner, to understand what's happening, because you think that something's wrong with you, and they also think that something's wrong with you. But it's just a natural process of something you're removing from your body that had a function, and it's no longer there. That's why I say it's an organ just like everything else.
And it's amazing how you have these medical challenges, if you will. And physicians generally tend to speak with you about the challenge that you're having, not the after effects, or even prepare you for what could happen, which is why this episode is so important, because there are so many women out there who are unfortunately suffering alone, and they think that there's something wrong with them. So Dr. Jean and our listening audience, women, know that you are not alone in this.
Yes.
Okay, that's the first thing.
This
is not isolated.
So important.
And it is. And to be able to speak with someone who has an intimacy wellness clinic, makes a difference, because one of the things that I want to make sure that women know, that change and help is available.
Yes. This is 21st century, and there's something out there for everything. You just got to find the right person, communicate, and then try different things to help you. But there is definitely help out there.
So this is exciting. That's why I'm so excited. Even though we don't like to talk about this subject, we are talking about this subject.
Yes.
And then there are other things that you can do. For instance, we touched on it a little bit, but what about foods? How can the foods that we eat enhance our libido, our desire?
So there are foods that have nitric oxide, which is a natural occurring product in food. That does increase your libido. And people don't really realize it until I mention it. I can tell you some foods you would never ever think had anything to do with it. But when you think back and say, I remember eating that. And that's why, yeah. So watermelon is one of them.
That was going to be my next question. So just keep rolling right along.
Citric, all of the citrus, lemon, orange, grapefruit. Your lean meats, the precursors turn into testosterone. So testosterone is one of the hormones that help us with our libido. So your lean meats, your turkey, lean, if you eat red meat, lean red meat, Another thing that is a natural occurring edamame. I don't know if you know.
I love edamame.
So edamame is it's
But
natural.
also now, okay, because also they would talk about soy with breast cancer, so you can't overdo it. Anything in moderation. So
Absolutely. And
exactly how much edamame do you
so
need to eat?
listen, let me tell you, you can't eat enough edamame to cause breast cancer.
Oh, that's good to
And I
know.
know it's in there, and everybody read it on the internet and say,
Hmm.
you know how much estrogen you'd have to eat. Okay, I mean, you can't eat it like every day, 3 times a day, but you can't eat anything like that. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Hmm.
But like
Everything in
if you
moderation.
exactly. So I believe that if you have, in moderation, if you have a little bit of soy milk, or you just put edamame in your salads a couple times a week or 3 times a week, it really does help because it's all natural estrogen. So it's pretty much when you're doing HRT, HRT is estrogen.
Hmm.
It's just plant based, but it's no different from edamame.
Okay.
The HRT is plant
I didn't
based.
know that. I thought it was synthetic.
No, the one that they call bioidentical, that one is plant based. That's why it's not under FDA regulation because it's a plant.
Okay. There's a way to skirt the issue.
Yes. So that's why it doesn't, and that's why the studies say that they help and that they still can't really say that it's linked to breast cancer or not because there are no studies like that. It's not FDA doesn't. It's not FDA approved. It's just what they call like an off label. And a lot of people don't really understand that. It's not through the FDA because it's the hormone replacements that what they call bioidentical is
Plant
plant
based.
based.
And so if it's not synthetic,
Then it doesn't
it
go
has
through
to
the
go through
FDA.
FDA.
Now there are estrogen things that have gone through FDA, and you see that on the label.
Mm-hmm.
You see that on the label that this may cause cancer. You see that on the label
Yes.
because there's some people that take straight estrogen pills, and they found that if they combine it with estrogen and progesterone, that you have a lower incidence. But remember, and back in the day,
They did.
that's what they did the
So boom.
study, and that's what happened. And
Yep.
so it wasn't until they found out later that they needed to combine the two.
Wow.
But the HRT, or what they call bioidentical, they say, oh, your body doesn't see it. Your body does see it. So there are some people that develop breast cancer. They just can't say that it came from that. But if they have no history of breast cancer and they've been on it for a long time, the recommendation is not to be on it for a long period of time.
So
That you start it, use it for a little while, and then you don't do it. Then you do it again, use it for a little while, and then so though that's really the recommendation. But some people who stay on it for long periods of time, I have had patients that
it raises the risk.
raises the risk.
It raises.
Exactly.
So what other supplements do you recommend to help women with their libido, their desire, and then also the experience?
So I would say supplements. You got to still be careful with the supplements also because they have estrogen. So it's like taking estrogen. So as far as the symptoms of menopause, they have a lot of products out there now that can help with it that are natural. So they have these natural now as far as lubrication, it's not estrogen based. They have natural substances that are like hyaluronidase that you put in the area, and it's hyaluronidase, which is found in our bodies anyway.
Okay.
So they have that. They have lots of things now out that you can try to see how they help, but you got to see how your body react to it.
Yes.
Natural supplements. I mean, I would say that if you are putting the soy milk, if you have tea or something, use your soy milk, a little bit of soy milk, and it's gonna help too.
What about every day? Because even though I'm a survivor and I know I'm not supposed to consume a lot of soy, I don't drink milk from animals. I'm a vegetarian. So
Right.
I
You use the soy
I
milk.
use soy milk.
Yes. If what do you use it in, cereal or?
My cappuccino.
Yes. I mean, that's what I mean. If you have that, I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. And then also remember, if your cancer was estrogen receptor positive or not. That too.
Yeah.
If you didn't have estrogen receptor positive cancer, and then you did the tamoxifen.
I did not. I had early stage breast cancer, DCIS, and I was given the option to either have a lumpectomy,
Or
radiation, and 5 years of tamoxifen,
or
a mastectomy.
I got you.
And I said, I read about tamoxifen and I
Yes.
read about radiation. And I said, at my age back then, I was finished with the breasts.
Yeah.
So I chose that. And it was supposed to be a unilateral. But
Right.
as we talked about my history and we talked about other markers in the other breast, I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this twice.
Exactly.
Let's just go ahead
And do bilateral.
Bilateral.
Yeah.
And then we talked about there are different things that you can do for breast cancer, but then
Right.
it does affect your desire.
Right.
And so that's why this is so important. This is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yes.
And we have survivors that will be listening, and they will have an opportunity to learn from you that, first of all, it's okay.
Yes.
It is okay.
That's right.
Maybe they don't talk to you about intimacy. They cure the cancer and put you out the door. And they do now have, more survivorship programs, but there's something about the topic of physical intimacy.
It's taboo.
It is taboo. But
It
we're
is
breaking
taboo.
that barrier.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
And I spend. It's very it's difficult, and that's why it's hard to advertise.
Yes.
With certain things that help in the area.
Well, we're going to talk about those things.
Okay.
So that's the next question. So
Right.
we can spend a little time on that.
By the way, I wanted to say primrose is another natural.
Oh, really?
And omega-3. And you have to get the ones that are what they call hexane free. But primrose is another one that helps with the vaginal area.
Okay.
As far as lubricating the and it's natural.
All
It's
natural.
basically omega-3 is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then when you come to my office, I really give you the off label of really how to use it, because taking it by mouth is not going to do it.
Okay. Well, that's kind of like a segue into the next question.
Yes.
What types of minimally invasive therapies can support a woman's libido, desire, and the actual engagement of the physical intimacy? So we're going to unpack this one. We're going to unpack this one, and it's going to be interesting because we know that there are some therapies out there that don't get a lot of attention that you specialize in. So why don't you just share a little bit about that?
I will share with you what I do most of the time in the office now is the laser treatment. So it's a non-invasive treatment. Now, everyone cannot have the laser. Most people can, because it's just a non-invasive process. What most people don't realize is that the vaginal area is just skin. So just like we use laser on our face to get rid of wrinkles and color discolorations, it restores the skin, rejuvenates the skin. Well, the vaginal area is skin. So that's why we can actually use the laser to rejuvenate the vaginal area. Most of the time, and what I found, that most people that start having pain, you have to approach it right away. So that pain that we talked about with the thinning of the vaginal tissues, the laser makes the tissues thicker. So it plumbs just the heat from the laser. And that's why you do have some of these, you can do suppositories and things like that. Warm water washes, those things help with vaginal lubrication, but the laser helps in a way that it lasts. So you do 3 laser treatments, 4 to 6 weeks apart, and the healing is what generates new tissues. Leukotrienes, all of those things that we usually don't have after a certain amount of time, and also with inactivity, all of those things come into play, and they stimulate the vaginal area. And when you start feeling like you used to feel when you did have estrogen and all these things around, then you can enjoy the process again.
So what was old becomes new.
Yes. So just like you restore your skin, it restores the skin. So there are other areas. I mean, it gets a little bit where you do internal versus external. You have to do the external part if you have pain. The internal part of the vaginal area doesn't have pain fibers. But if it dries out, it's not going to be pleasant when you try to have intercourse. So the inside stimulates, the laser on the inside stimulates the tissues, makes them plumper, and they just lubricate better. The outside is where most people will have pain at, because those tissues, they just thin out so bad. The laser plumps those tissues also.
Wow.
So it just really depends over time. I've been doing it now for like 10 years because I was diagnosed in 2014. That's how I redirected my medical practice. From my own experience.
Yes, that was the first question.
From my own experience.
So we're going to go back to that because I want you to share.
Yes.
When I ask you how your breast cancer changed
that's what
your
happened.
Professional life, talk to me about that.
So I had a bilateral mastectomy, and immediately I had one more cycle after that mastectomy, and I went into menopause. And I know that they say it's not supposed to affect anything. But if you talk to people who've had hysterectomies, mastectomies, they can tell you they went into menopause right after. So I did not have to have chemo because I had stage 0 also. And I did do a bilateral mastectomy because I had a strong family history. But we found out later that my family history was familial because we don't have any genetics at all in the family. But it's familial being that maybe you all grew up in the same area and whatever you were exposed to.
Right.
That's what, so that makes it familial. So I was the last of 3 sisters who acquired breast cancer. I was the last of the 3 sisters. My older and younger, and I was the last one.
So all of your sisters,
twice.
It was not genetic.
It was not genetic.
It was environmental.
Familial. They call that familial because they say maybe something in the family that you were exposed to growing up that caused you to have the genetic, unless later something shows up in the genes. But in the last 10 years, nothing new has shown up.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So, but I went into menopause like right away. I didn't have to have chemo. Now, both my sisters did have to have chemo, and they went into menopause immediately after the first week of treatment. It affects your ovaries. You go into menopause. I went into menopause naturally, so I was 52.
Oh. Okay.
And then right around that little 2-year point, 2 to 3 years, that's when you start getting the pain. It doesn't feel the same. And that's how I was like, I'm not done.
I'm not done with life.
I'm not done. I'm not done. So I was like, there's got to be something out there.
So you spoke a little bit about it. What would you say are the number of therapies that you can offer women that are minimally invasive?
So that's one. The laser is one. Now there's another treatment, the PRP. That also.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So the PRP is an injection. It's not the laser. The PRP does what the laser, because I take blood, spin it down, and that's what the laser produces in the vaginal area to cause the inflammation, the healing, and all of that comes together, produces a new space for intimacy. But you can use the PRP also. It's just that it does not last as long
as the laser.
The laser does some other things. Now, I can rejuvenate the vagina with the PRP injections, but the laser gives you more. A lot of times I do the combination. For those people who don't, I have clients that are like a little bit older and like say they're in their 70s and they're still active because of, they have Viagra out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and a 70-year-old vagina does not get along with Viagra. So I do get those. That's a mixed match. So I get those clients, and they don't have enough estrogen because remember they only have like whatever their ovary is still making,
Even if
and
they
their
have their
adrenals.
ovaries.
It's not a lot. So and then you can take the HRT, but it's not, you can't take enough to give you vaginal lubrication. Otherwise you're going to start having a period again, so you know it's too much. So I have those patients that say, well, I don't want the hormones, because sometimes I have to use the vaginal inserts for those patients, which it's not absorbed as much into the body as if you're taking it or if you're doing HRT. But just for a short time, if I can use it for a short time and get that estrogen in, because the laser needs moisture. So if they don't have moisture, then they don't do well with the treatment.
So that means you have a precursor. You have a pre-treatment before you can.
Yes.
And everyone is different.
Exactly. Everyone is different. So those who don't want even the intravaginal inserts, which is, like I said, is much less absorption. It is absorbed into the body, but it's a lot less. We only do it for a short period of time, only around the treatment. Once you do your 3 treatments, you're talking 3 months, because it's 4 to 6 weeks that you can do your treatment. 3 months, 3 or 4 months of that, then I'll do the laser, or I'll do the injection, which is the PRP. And then that will give me some lubrication to do the laser. But a 70-year-old PRP is different from a 40-year-old PRP.
Everything is related to your age.
Exactly. Because your PRP doesn't have all of, like 70s. If you're 70, it's not going to have all of the good stuff that 40 has in it. So your results may vary. Your results going to vary based on your age and like what we do. But you may need to get, your touch-up maybe a little bit sooner than if we use the PRP just for vaginal lubrication, because the PRP will give you vaginal lubrication. An older person, maybe I need to do more injections of the PRP before I do the laser. Okay. Or, I've been doing it for so long now. It's like, I know.
Based on the age, or even at the age, there should be some variations, because some 70-year-olds look like they're 50-year-olds.
Absolutely. And some 70-year-olds are still doing the hormones. If they're doing the hormones, and because some people like, listen, I got to have my hormones. If they're doing the hormones, then I can still do the laser on them without having to give them the vaginal insert. It's just that my breast cancer patients who are like estrogen receptor positive, I can't do the vaginal inserts on them, because I work with the GYN and the gynecologist, the gynecologist and the oncologist. Okay. And they don't want, like, if they're estrogen receptor, I wouldn't even want it either. Right. But at least I have the option of doing, like, my younger patients that are coming with breast cancer. They're getting younger and younger. I can do PRP if they have estrogen receptor positive. I can use the PRP to just lubricate it, to stimulate the lubrication, and then do the laser without hormones. But I usually will, we'll get together and we make a educated decision, right, with the patient, the doctors, and all of us say, okay, well, do we want to use this or no? I'd rather not have that, and that we do what's safe. Because, it's not worth it to have a problem just to get, you know what I mean? Right. So we do what's safe, but it's a team of us. And the GYNs, I'm the laser specialist. My GYNs are Gemini OBGYN. I work with them. And then usually the patient's oncologist. We all work together and decide
what's the best
course of action for the
That's
patient.
Wonderful. This has truly been very exciting. And final question. What advice can you share that can make a difference in the lives of our audience?
I would say my strongest advice is to realize this is 21st century. You don't have to suffer
in silence.
Share when you do find something that's a remedy, because I don't just use what I have. Everybody who comes to me, I say, who is that? What are you using there? What works for you? And I make that part of my list, because maybe what works for one patient doesn't work for another. I like this oil, coconut oil, but somebody else might say, oh, I use this. Well, which one do you use? I found this one works the best. Everything that I use in my office, I've done on myself. And I found through just experimenting what's the best one. But then another client finds other things that are good. Like someone told me the other day about the yam, and she gives me information, and I just share that information. We just share. So I would recommend that you don't give up, don't suffer, and share whatever information with someone else, because we're here to spread the information to one another. And I really believe through divine intervention that most of the patients that find me, I always say, you found me and I found you, because we help each other. And I think it's all through God. I really do. I'm a very spiritual person. And I think he links us up for a reason, so that we can help one another. I know when I first had that problem, I prayed. I was like, you got to get me something. And every step I took led to another. And then there it was. It was
And
the
your whole
laser.
professional
And then
life
my whole
changed.
professional life
I
changed.
met you and you were an anesthesiologist.
Uh-huh.
And the next thing I knew,
know,
you were
it's like,
okay. This is where
this
God
is it.
had. This
It was
your
all
road.
in the plan.
That's it.
And so something that was not so pleasant turned into something that I can help
Can be a
other
blessing
women.
to so many other
Exactly.
women.
Exactly.
So many
So
other
that's what and I love my work.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It doesn't feel like work.
And I'm glad that there are options and that we are starting this conversation. I don't think that this is the first time we're going to have you here, because we have to normalize this conversation.
Yes.
You know, it's like, shh.
And
Don't
exactly.
Don't talk about it. Pretend that it's not happening. But the more we talk about it and the more we engage and find solutions, the more it becomes normalized, and people will be more apt to seek support and not live and suffer in silence. So thank you
Right.
so very much
And
for that.
call and ask questions, because what sounds like a big deal, that laser treatment, is like not a big deal for the results that you get. It is really. It's no cutting. It's all non-invasive. Things that sound difficult, it is so easy. It's so easy.
Wow.
And you don't have to suffer for something so easy that's here and available.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So we greatly appreciate this intriguing conversation. And I always like to close with special thanks, because we didn't get here by ourselves. As a matter of fact, the road to this podcast is very unique. And I'd like to thank Maritza Acosta. He's a high school student. We spoke about him a little bit earlier. He is a phenomenon. Really, he is. You know, it has become because of him that I got introduced formally to the mayor. And he has his own nonprofit organization. Amazing young man. And he's focused on civic engagement and empowering the next generation to be leaders of our country. And he is working with so many high schools and so many of his peers. And he's doing amazing things here locally throughout the state and even in Washington, D.C. So I just want to acknowledge him. I'm super proud of him. And then to the outgoing mayor of the town of Miami Lakes, Mayor Manny Sid. You know, I just want to thank Manny Sid for, first of all, suggesting that we do a podcast based on some kind of health subject matter. But even more so, he has a podcast studio in his office, and he invited us. Once he made that suggestion, he said, you can do everything here. It's really easy, no problem. So I just want to think he's a very special man, and I do wish him good success. Thank you for opening your heart, your office,
Yes,
and
thank you.
everything. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future. And then to our distinguished guest, Dr. Jean Johnson. Listen, I keep innovating.
Yes, I will. That's for sure.
Keep serving.
Yes,
Keep
yes,
serving.
yes.
And keep empowering women.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every day.
And keep living your best life.
Thank you. Thank you. You do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am your host, Andrea Ivory. Tune in next month for another episode of Living for Longevity. Featured will be stories of triumph over tragedy, lifestyle experts, strategies to help you live a disease-deterrent lifestyle, and resources to guide you along the way so that you can live your best life and enjoy more time with family and friends doing the things that you love to do. Please visit us on our website at flbreasthealth.com, where you can find resources to help you in your journey. We're also social. You can visit us on Instagram and X at WBHI, and on Facebook and YouTube at the WBHI. And until next time, live your best life.